Hi everyone, I had a good question about the number of valence electrons that an iron atom would have. That is not something I will ask you on a quiz or a test, but I do want to explain to you how we could figure that out briefly. So if you remember, for this class, we simplify our model to say that we have a shell of electrons for each row of the periodic table, or for each period. So this is our first shell, and then we've got our second shell, third shell, fourth shell, okay? So if we're trying to figure out for something that's a transition metal, how many valence electrons it has, I'm gonna think through. First shell has 1, 2 electrons. Remember, each box on the table is corresponding to an electron. So that would be 1 electron, 2 electrons in our first shell, okay? And I'm just drawing like half shells here. All right, second shell, now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I've got, I'm just going to shorthand here, put 8 electrons in my second shell. All right, third shell, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 electrons there. Now, if you look up online, the internet will actually tell you correctly that we can fit up to 18 electrons. So we can put 2, 8, and a max of 18 in our third shell. But they don't all go in at once. So what happens is when we get to our next shell here, our fourth shell, okay, so we're looking here, right? I'm going to count and I'm going to put 1, 2 electrons into that fourth shell. And then something happens a little bit different here when I get to the transition metals, all of these here. Those electrons actually end up bearing back into the third shell. So they actually go one shell like more inside, more towards the core. So then for iron, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we actually pop 6 more electrons into the third shell. So it's as if this whole transition metal chunk like moves up more interior, okay? So if I count up all of those electrons, those still add up to 26 electrons total. But if I look at what the valence electrons are, so valence electrons is just going to be 2, and that's because of these 2 that went into the fourth shell. So it actually ends up being the pattern, and there are exceptions, but it is the pattern that for every element that's in the transition metal chunk, they all have this same 2 valence electrons, because it would be those 2, or these 2, or these 2, or these 2. Again, I won't ask you that. We'll stick with just periods 1 through 3 when I go to test you, but I sometimes do like to stretch you a little bit on your homework. So 2 valence electrons for iron. I hope that makes some sense and helps you out.